According to the United Nations official reports, more than 10 children are killed or injured every day in Lebanon in the last 3 years. The war actually has had a devastating impact on the lives of the ordinary people, and Israel has been accused of committing war crimes. So that is why in this new episode, I'm speaking with Batoul, my friend who lives in Lebanon, so that she can tell you directly what has been happening in Lebanon, because in no media you cannot find anything about the reality that is happening on the ground in Lebanon. Hello, Batoul.
Hello everybody. Hello dear. Thank you
How are you?
for this invitation.
Thank you
Well,
for accepting. Thank you a lot.
thank you.
You are helping to share your experiences and thoughts and peaceful ideas in Lebanon to the old people, especially people in the Western countries, to understand what is the reality in Lebanon. How are the effects on the ordinary people according to the war in this three recent years. So, in my first question, I want to ask you, could you tell us a little about the current situation in Lebanon? What is happening? Could you give us a summary of the war that started 3 years ago?
Okay. So if you want, let me before talking back about the 3 years of starting this war, and despite the so-called ceasefire and despite the agreement of surrender and humiliation that our state unfortunately made with the occupying entity, the cycle of aggression has continued until today. Daily airstrikes and attacks on southern Lebanon and evacuation threats against villages. A few days ago, the enemy threatened the Christian quarter in Tyre, which is, or as we call it, Sur, which is known as one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city where our Christian people and families live. So, and today it carried out a crucial attack on Beirut's southern suburb, Dahieh, in a densely populated neighborhood at the busiest hour of the day. This led to the martyrdom of two people and the wounding of many civilians. The reality is that Lebanon is a small country, and sadly, after all the attacks on it, it is hard to find a safe place to live. Even in
Yeah.
some of the safe areas, rents have become very high. Some people, because of political differences, may refuse to take others in, or they are simply afraid of the bombing. This is especially true since Israel deliberate it meant يعني يعني on purpose it bombed areas where there are no Shia or Hezbollah supporters in order to terrify the Lebanese and scare them away from taking in their own fellow citizens. So, but of course,
Because
thanks God,
Israel is
there are
going
many
to
generous and uh,
sorry, because Israel is going to rebuild the new Middle East based on its benefits. So actually, it never cares about the Shia or your ethnicity.
yeah. Of course, thanks to God, there are many generous and hospitable people from all the from all parts of the Lebanese society who welcomed and hosted the families of the South, the Bekaa and the suburb, and offered them a helping hand. But the idea of that this entity is on purpose trying to make a difference inside the same society, that same country. It's trying to let us be enemies for each other or being terrified from each other is very hurtful. So still the Thousarans, any Janubiyin, always longs for their homes and their village. Nothing compares to a person's original home and homeland. So that's why many residents of the suburb and the south chose to return to their homes, exhausted by displacement and its burdens and by the high cost of living. So despite the daily attacks on the south and western Bekaa, today's strike on the suburb was an Israel challenge meant to trick the people of Hezbollah and the Lebanese people into believing that Iran had abandoned them. and that Iran would not respond. But thanks to God, by His grace and the grace of the Islamic Republic, we saw with our eyes the sky lit up with missiles leading toward the unstable entity in some parts of Lebanon, of those little kids who were killed today, of those injured ladies who were in their homes cooking for their children. And thanks to God, this is the, let's say, uh, just of Allah, justice rule of Allah.
So my next question is that Israel actually, until now in this last 3 years, has violated the ceasefire more than 1,000, or according to some official reports, more than 2,000 times in the Lebanon. So is that true? Could you explain us about what actually Israel has done in Lebanon during all these ceasefires?
Well, actually, when you talk about numbers or you read official documents, the idea of any information seems very cold, but when you live it, it feels a lot different. Okay, so when you read it is 10,000 attack. Okay, what no, it is a number, but imagine you are living that. Imagine that you are living in a country where there is an entity that decide every day to attack your home or kill your brother or husband or father on a daily attack every day. Actually, this period of our life can't be forgettable. Although war is very hard, although we don't want war, this attack done by Israel through the 15 months before the current war was leading people to say, no, go. We are ready to go into any war. We are ready to be displaced from our land in order to say no for this entity, in order to stop these crimes daily. Through these 15 days, there were a journalist who took his daughter into the university. He was taking her because she had exams. While he was returning home, Israel attacked him. He is a journalist. And you know, in the international war, journalists can't be killed. There were a
Yeah, that's
family
part.
that is not from yeah, there was a family that is not from the Hezbollah people. There were an ordinary family that have, I think, an American passport, and they were coming from outside to spend their summer vacation inside Lebanon. The Israeli enemy attacked them, bombed their car, and the father, two twins, almost 2 years old, were killed. The mother was injured, and their sister was injured also, and she stayed at the hospital for months before waking up and knowing that she lost her family.
Yeah,
So this was
that's
the
beautiful. And that is also is not the only example. Easily you can find
a lot of
many,
those
many,
stories.
many times of that.
Yeah, and I would send you some videos and images that you can see how mothers were watching their uh, 18 years old son fired inside their cars after the Israel attacked him. There's a story about a father that has a call from the Israeli captain asking him if he wants to die alone or with his family. So if you want to die alone, just go outside the house so we can bomb you without your family. Imagine such a situation, how his family felt at that moment. And actually, the man get out of his house and Israel attacked him and killed him.
Actually, I wonder why the things happening in Lebanon are not portrayed in the media, especially the Western media. I don't know. What is the exact reason that nobody knows about the genocide that is happening in Lebanon?
Yeah.
What
Well,
what what do you think?
actually, it's partially a matter of perception and partially structural. And I'd offer a few honest explanations or let's say, in my opinion, rather than a single conspiracy. First of all, when Gaza was during the time of Gaza war, the media attention was going there, and after the Iran war and other crises absorbed most coverage, so Lebanon was often treated as a secondary front. Another reason is that the access restriction, the targeting of journalists and medical personnel documented by the UN, makes independent on the ground reporting dangerous and limits the flow of footage and verified information. During this war, during these 3 months, more than 28 journalists were attacked and on purpose. Amal Khalil, if you can search about her, Amal Khalil was a journalist in Al Akhbar newspaper. She was surrounded by the drone after her car been attacked, and she was still alive, calling the government and the medics to rescue her. But the Israeli didn't give a permission, so Amal Khalil died, and she's a journalist, and the Israeli knows that she is a journalist. So this terrifying act of terrifying journalists, of terrifying media, coverage limits the coverage of the war. The third one is the funding and fatigue of $308 million emergency appeal. Only $94 million was received. Underfunding of the humanitarian response often correlates with undercoverage. The story simply gets less institutional push. So, and the fourth, and for me it is the most important reason, unfortunately, is the framing. When a conflict is framed primarily as Israel versus an armed group, civilian suffering is sometimes treated as a secondary to the military narrative, whereas this attack is an Israeli attack over a country named Lebanon. And we can see this from all the examples of the targets of this entity, which can, this reason reduce the human interest coverage that drives global attention, unfortunately. So we can conclude that because of all of these reasons, I just want to add before giving you the numbers about this point exactly. When we say that in any country in the world, any attack on the land of the other country, it is named a war against this country. But the Americans, unfortunately, we can say that they were paying money to our media coverage in Lebanon. There is a lot of TV channels in Lebanon uh, that are repeating the Israeli, let's say, unfortunately, America and the Israeli entity pay money for some TV channels in Lebanon in order to make a work on the campaigns that they are doing to let people feel and think that this war is on a certain group and not on the whole Lebanese land and people. So they tell us every strike had a reason. So fine, let's actually look at the reasons. You know, on in during 1948, the reason that they said it is a regional war. The reality, no Lebanese armed faction existed at that time. The men of Hula were executed unarmed after surrender. The officer who did it was convinced by Israel's own military court. So
Mm.
later on 1916, no rockets, no factions, not even a stated reason, just water. Israel bombed the Wazani spring and destroyed the drinking water reservoirs of Maisel Jabal. The reason, our thirst was inconvenient. On 1968, the reason, a Palestinian operation at Athens airport. The response, Israeli commands destroyed 13 Lebanese civilian planes in Beirut. The UN Security Council condemned it unanimously. Resolution 262. So, on 1982, the reason, an assimilation attempt on Israel's ambassador in London. What they don't tell us, it was carried out by Abu Nidal, the PLO's enemy, not a member. And who did Israel attack in response? The PLO in Beirut. The pretext was in one place, the target in another entirely. So, this is how the archive reads. Over 70 years, the pretext keeps changing. The aggressor doesn't. The land doesn't. The civilian dead don't. If the pretext were the cause, the aggression would stop when the pretext stopped. But it hasn't. So actually, you can see that Israel doesn't need a justification to attack. It selects one. Anyone who tells you otherwise is reading history backwards. So they say every strike had a reason, but we can see through our history, our own history. There's people who lived that period. Israel is just changing the pretext, whereas the aggression doesn't change, and the civilian and the massacres doesn't the way of killing children, of killing medics, of killing journalism, it is the same.
Yes, exactly. That was a very useful point to think, to believe that the reality in Middle Eastern countries are is very different from what you hear from the media. So that is why if you want to know uh, the society and the reality in Lebanon, you have to follow the local media and you have to ask of the local people, not the opposition or not following the propaganda in media. So I want to ask the most important question about the effect of the war, especially in these last 3 years on people. I've heard in the news, especially from the local news, that a lots of people from the village in the southern Lebanon actually they are displaced. Actually, all of their houses are destroyed it's for more than 1 year that they have serious problems with drinking waters. And I mean, Israel actually bombed uh, most of their sources of water and also about the electricities, and they are not allowed to open their shops and do their jobs. Is that right? Sorry.
Okay, well, another thing that is very important to talk about, actually, as you have mentioned, Israel is trying to make a yellow line, as it mentioned, and an empty region from people in order to occupy our land. So you
Yes.
can see that it is on a daily basis. It is trying to destroy homes on these villages, the villages that are on the border, in order to prevent people from coming back to their own land. And this was very hurtful for people. Although it started doing this from the last war. Actually, after the last war, it was trying to do this through the 15 months. Also, it was trying to do this, but Tasrim people are very. How I say it, they like their villages and their lands, so
Because
they
it's their home. Mm.
so well, actually, not only during this war, but also during the last war in 2024, Israeli forces make sure to destroy as much as it can the villages that are on the border of occupied Palestine land. So they were trying to destroy houses on daily basis. They were trying to do anything to prevent people from going back to their war. During this war, they carried out massive and systemic destruction of infrastructure and residential areas along the borders, most notably in the southern Lebanon region. Human rights organizations, actually, satellite investigations, and United Nations reports indicate that the devastation goes beyond conventional warfare, aiming to permanently alter the landscape and render these areas uninhabitable. And actually, they doesn't only the method of destruction. While they were using several tactics, controlled demolitions following ground incursions. Israeli troops have used manually led explosives to detonate entire neighborhoods simultaneously. Videos frequently show massive blasts flattering multi buildings and commercial centers in seconds, and we have seen that before. Heavy aerial bombing, airstrikes have been used to clear out densely populated residential zones and historical districts, actually, and bulldozing and earth moving. bulldozers or military bulldozers have been heavily utilized to tear up roads and clear away the rubble of destroyed homes and uproot surrounding environments, as well as the use of chemical agents or air bursts, white phosphorus munitions, and artillery has agented massive, uncontrollable fires, intentionally destroying thousands of hectares of forests, of groves, and agricultural land. So the destruction of, this tactics made a very massive destruction that has systematically dismantled the systems required to sustain human life in these regions. Civilian housing, the scale of housing loss is staggering. Actually, in southern Lebanon alone, over 46,000 buildings were damaged or destroyed between 2023 and early 2026. During the fire's escalation in March and April 2026, an estimated 40,000 housing units were completely or partially destroyed in just 35 days. In several border manipulation, over 70% of all structures have been wiped out, as well as when we talk about infrastructure. Essential infrastructure has been explicitly targeted. This includes the destruction of state and private electricity grids, solar panels, telecommunication towers, and water storage and treatment facilities. So, to physically sever the southern border region from the rest, also they used isolation tactics to tactics to physically sever the southern border region from the rest of the country. Israel forces systemically destroyed key bridges, particularly those crossing the Litani River, so that people can't return to their villages. As well as when we talk about health care and heritage, dozens of hospitals and health clinics have been forced to shut down or have been bombed. Cultural and historic memory has also been erased, including the destruction of the 400-year-old Great Mosque in Bint Jbeil and the 1,000-year-old Masjid of the Prophet Shuaib in the Jabal Amel region, as well as I think you can hear about the Shkrif castle in this few weeks. So legal experts actually and local officials note that the ultimate objective behind this systemic demolition is the creation of a depopulated buffer zone. By emptying the residential geography and dismantling all sustaining infrastructure, the strategy ensures that the displaced civilian population, numbering over 1.2 million people in Lebanon, can't return home. So Israel militarily enemy have openly compared this strategy to their military campaigns in Gaza, actually stating that the goal is to permanently clear the forward edge of the border to secure northern Israel settlements from cross-border attacks.
Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. And actually, I saw a video on social media. I guess it was on an Instagram. I can publish it for my our audiences. That the Israeli forces actually they were damaging the solar panels in a
Yeah.
village. So I was thinking by myself. I mean, how can a solar system support terrorists? I mean, this is the topic of their news
Yeah.
that they say, okay, the water, the electricity, the old bridge, all local people, all children, all journalists, they are all helping to the terrorists to attack Israel. But unfortunately, we see that Israel is actually is a terrorist forces that actually
Yeah.
has violated the ceasefire. And actually, as I told you in the first part of our podcast, actually, according to the United Nations official reports, in this last year, Israel actually has killed or injured 10 children every day. So that is why it's a war crime. And I'm really sorry to mention that.
I just want to add, after you have mentioned about the solar power or the solar system, more than that, actually, I don't know if you have seen during this specific war, how inside Dibble a photograph circulated widely showing an Israeli soldier posing offensively with a statue of the Virgin Mary, placing a cigarette in her
Yeah.
mouth. So this followed a similar incident in April where a footage emerged of a soldier smashing the head of a statue of Jesus Christ with an axe. So if let's say, for example, that all the other things are supporting terrorism, how that Jesus Christ is supporting Hezbollah? How? So
Yeah.
actually, all of
I
these
posted a
attacks,
picture of that soldier on my YouTube.
yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, this event serves as a textbook example of how a single piece of visual content can completely show how much this enemy is unhumanized. There's no single humanization or moral justification for their military operations in Lebanon. Okay, going back to your question about why is Lebanon undercovered in world media? So actually, there's more than one reason. The first one is the competition for attention. As we all know, many media outlets have a agenda setting inside their coverage so that they might give attention for some and during the Gaza war the more attention was for Gaza because there were more massacres inside the Gaza land. There were a lot of crime wars, war crimes inside Gaza. So that's why there were more coverage on the Gaza war. During the Iran war, also, or the Israeli American attack on Iran, also, it took the more attention. And other crises absorbed most coverage, actually. Lebanon was often treated as a secondary front. And another reason is the access restriction because of targeting journalists, because of targeting medical personnel. Yani, those who were covering the war were have been targeted. So that's why the on the ground reporting told that it is dangerous, and this limits the flow of footage and verified information from the southern land. I told you maybe about Amal Khalil, how they target her, about Mr. Ali Shuaib, who is يعني a very old journalist and very professional journalist in Lebanon, who was also targeted by the Israeli military forces. So actually, all of these examples have made it very hard to cover what is happening in southern Lebanon or in Dahi. As well as for me, it is the most important reason is the framing. When war is
Yes.
framed primarily as Israel versus armed group, civilian suffering will be treated as a secondary to the military narrative, which can reduce the human interest coverage than it drives global attention. So when we see this strategy in a lot of media coverage in Lebanon, use a framing theory in order to cover the Lebanese war, so that they tell people that this is a war against a specific armed group, not against all the Lebanese country.
Yeah.
Although there is a lot of stories that we witness it daily that show that that this narrative is it's a lying narrative on people.
Yes.
Actually, before days last week, there were a girl named Theodosia Karam. Theodosia is a Christian girl with her father and mother and brother. Sorry, her father is a professor or a teacher at the Lebanese university. While she was going back from the university, Israel bombed their car. They were martyred, and unfortunately, the media inside Lebanon hasn't covered this attack because simply they couldn't make advantage from it on a political purpose. So unfortunately, inside Lebanon, actually we don't have a one war. We have two side war. We have a war from the Israeli enemy or this occupying entity, and at the same time we have an let's say inside Lebanon we have a media war on our people actually.
Yeah, actually, because of big propaganda and
Yeah,
big companies and in the world, actually, they actually have no benefit in coverage of the reality and the killing of the children and the journalists and the doctors in Lebanon. So that is why it's very difficult to fight again the propaganda. But
yeah,
Alhamdulillah, I think after Tufan al-Aqsa, it's been more clear for people all around the world to understand what is the reality. For example, I remember the last year that that there was a huge famine in Gaza. Lots of people they were killed because of the hunger. I think that things led to the old people in the world to open their eyes to understand what is happening, what kind of genocide is
mm,
happening in Palestine. But before that, nobody actually
was
knew
caring about.
about what's happening in the Palestine and the occupation. But now Israel actually is acting in a more obvious way to show its military doctrine to the people.
Yeah,
And I think all countries and all people around the world, they can, despite the Zionist people and their supporters, the majority of the people around the world, they are against this kind of terrorist actions, and they are supporting the Lebanon, the Iran, the Palestine, and the Iraq. I mean, I'm sure that.
you know, actually, yani, this entity has came to occupy the land, and it was from first day a very aggressive entity, but the whole world was just closing their eyes about it. Now, because thanks to God, because there were a very huge media coverage in Gaza, people know better what is happening and what kind of entity they are working to running to do to make peace with. This entity doesn't know something named peace, who kill children, who kill over 1,000 children in Gaza and Lebanon, doesn't know peace. What peace they are talking about. And unfortunately, terrifying people, those who still being afraid of saying no, will be also you can see a lot of example of the peace countries or the countries who try to make peace with or not making any attack toward Israel, how Israel treated them. Syria, which is on our border, that hadn't tried to do anything toward Israel. Add to that, they told the new government, the new temporary government in Syria said for the Israeli and Americans, we are going we are ready to do anything so that we can still in a safer place from you or make support with each other. Though Israel has occupied the Julan and gone toward Jabal al-Sheikh in Syria, and it attacks Syria. It attacks all their military weapons and the places which it was يعني uh, uh, a weak, not a strong point or a opportunity for any government to go on and stay in a safer place. So
Yes.
unfortunately, this is the what is Israel about inside Palestine. People of the of Al Daffa who have a peace paper with them over 30 years of peace agreement. Israel now is occupying more lands. It is taking their homes. It is killing their children. Although those people had made a peace agreement with them. So
Yes.
this entity simply have a vision of the big Israel or the Israel, let's say. Land, and they are going to occupy all the lands whenever they have the opportunity to do that. The only solution toward this cancer of the region is saying no and trying to do our own right in the all international
Resistance.
laws
Continue to
to
keep
revolt,
resistance.
yeah, to
Yeah.
resist this enemy.
Yeah, inshallah. thank you a lot. I know that the
Thank you
situation
so
in
much.
Lebanon is about is a bit difficult for you, but thank you for spending your time to our audiences, and thank you a lot. And if you have any question, please write in comments. Inshallah, me and Batul will answer you. And if you are interested to discover more about the cultural aspects of the society in Lebanon, you can suggest and write your ideas in comments. Inshallah, me and Batul, we will have another podcast. Thank you a lot. Thank you, Batul.
Thank you, dear.